In the year 2074, far beyond the blue glow of Earth, a quiet part of space near Jupiter held a strange secret. In the deep shadows, where sunlight could barely touch, an alien ship floated silently. It belonged to a race known as the Arundel Collective, intelligent beings who had watched humanity from afar for centuries. The Arundel were explorers, scientists, and watchers. They believed they understood every kind of technology the universe could make. But that night, they found something that did not belong, something that would change everything they knew about life, war, and fear. The object was first seen by a small Arundel patrol drone. It was drifting slowly near the orbit of Ganymede, one of Jupiter's moons. At first, the readings showed it was only debris, a metal wreck from some forgotten human battle. The Arundel were used to finding lost ships and satellites from many species. But when the main ship focused its long-range scanners, the picture became clearer. It wasn't just a wreck, it was a warship, a massive one. Its name could still be read in Old English letters burned into the side, HMS resolution. The crew gathered around the holographic display. The warship looked dead, its surface covered with dark scars. Holes melted through the armor, and strange glowing marks like veins running across its hull. Some parts were broken open, as if something had exploded inside it. But even in its silence, there was something about it that felt alive. The Arundel captain Varen ordered the ship to approach slowly. Their sensors reached out with invisible waves, scanning the human vessel. But the readings they got back made no sense. The warship gave off a pulse, a faint rhythm, like a heartbeat. Its metal wasn't just steel or titanium. It was mixed with something organic, living cells that had fused with machinery. One of the scientists whispered that it looked like the ship had grown instead of being built. The Arundel had seen living technology before, but never like this. It was as if the ship itself had become a creature. The first scans showed energy still moving deep inside the warship. Though its engines were dead, something within it was still awake. The Arundel team debated whether to continue the scan. Some argued it could be dangerous. Others were too curious to stop. They wanted to know how humans, a young and reckless species, had made such a thing. The Arundel were a race that valued knowledge above all. And curiosity, they believed, was always worth the risk. They began a deeper scan, using a high-frequency beam to read the warship's core systems. The screen filled with strange data, energy spikes that came and went like breathing. Then, something even stranger appeared. The Arundel's computers detected patterns hidden inside the ship's structure, not made by any known machine. The patterns looked like neural networks, the kind found inside living brains. The scientists stared in silence. It seemed the HMS Resolution had something that behaved like a mind. Could it be an A? One asked. No, another said softly. It's not artificial. The more they scanned, the more confusing it became. The ship's memories, if that's what they were, began to flow into the Arundel computers. They saw flashes of images, burning skies, human soldiers standing in a rain of fire, and mechanical creatures tearing through cities. They saw the ship itself firing beams that split other ships into dust. Every scene showed destruction, and yet in the center of it all, there was always calm human voices giving commands, recording events, almost as if they were documenting the end of something, maybe the end of their own kind. The crew felt uneasy. The scans should have shown only energy readings, not memories or visions. One of the younger scientists tried to shut off the scan, but the controls delayed. The ship was feeding data back into them as if it wanted them to see. Varen, the captain, told the team to stop immediately, but the system kept running on its own. Lights flickered across the alien control room. A low hum began to fill the air, like distant thunder. Then suddenly it stopped. Silence filled the ship again. Every display went black. The Arundel crew looked around nervously, waiting for something to happen. Nothing moved. No explosion, no sound. After a few seconds, the lights came back, and the scans ended. The readings now said the warship was completely inert, no power, no energy, no life. It was as if it had shut itself down after showing them those strange visions. The captain ordered a full data review. They replayed the scans frame by frame. What they found was disturbing. The energy signatures coming from the warship had not been random. They matched the rhythm of human brainwaves, not one but thousands layered together, as if the minds of many people had been recorded inside the metal. It wasn't a ship. It was a collection of thoughts, fears, and memories all preserved in a living machine. The Arundel scientists didn't know what to believe. Had humans created something that merged life and machine, or had the machine somehow absorbed human consciousness? Some said it was impossible. Others said it was genius. A few whispered it was evil. While they argued, the ship continued to drift quietly in space, turning slowly under Jupiter's dim light. The longer they watched, the more they felt it was watching back. Some crew members reported hearing faint whispers when near the scanner room, though no recordings captured any sound. The ship seemed to communicate in ways they couldn't measure. It was as if their own thoughts were being touched by it, despite the strange events. The Arundel Council back home ordered them to continue studying it. The chance to understand human war technology was too valuable. The captain reluctantly agreed. They expanded the scan, mapping every surface of the HMS Resolution. The more data they collected, the more mysterious it became. Beneath the metal plating, they found tunnels and chambers like veins, leading to a central heart chamber that glowed faintly. Inside, the sensors picked up traces of DNA, human DNA. That discovery silenced everyone. It wasn't a metaphor anymore. The ship literally had human genetic material woven into its structure. How could that be? Did the humans build it using their own bodies? Or had something far worse happened? Something where humans became the ship itself? The Arendelle had no answers. For the next several hours, the crew took turns observing the warship. Some began to feel a strange connection to it, an emotion they couldn't describe. It was as though the ship was trying to communicate not through sound or light, but through emotion. Fear, sorrow, and pride seemed to leak into the minds of those who stared at it too long. Captain Varan started to regret ever coming close. He sent a report to the council, recommending the ship be left alone. But the reply he got was simple: continue. Knowledge is survival. So they continued. And as they did, one last scan captured something no one could explain. The warship emitted a faint pulse, not random this time, but structured like a code. The translation system struggled, but one short line appeared on the display, written in ancient human English: "Do not look inside." The crew went silent. No one spoke for several minutes. Then the message disappeared, and the pulse stopped. The ship went dark again, floating peacefully as if nothing had happened. That night, none of the Arendelle crew could sleep. They felt a strange presence in their dreams, voices whispering, faces of humans they had never seen, looking at them through smoke and fire. It felt too real. When morning came, some of the crew avoided even looking at the warship again. But curiosity is stronger than fear, and Varan knew his people would never turn away from such a mystery. They believed they were studying a dead machine, a relic of human history. What they didn't know was that the HMS Resolution had not died at all. It had been waiting, watching, listening, and now, after being found, it had finally opened its eyes again. For the Arendelle, this was only the beginning, the moment when curiosity met something far beyond their understanding. They thought they had discovered an old human warship. In truth, they had awakened something that was never meant to sleep, something that would soon make them realize their end had already begun. Asterisk. The Arendelle scientists could not stop thinking about the strange human warship they had found. Even though the captain had warned them to be careful, curiosity filled the air like electricity. Every member of the crew wanted to understand what they had seen. How could a ship be half metal and half living being? What kind of war had created such a thing? And what did the message "do not look inside" truly mean? These questions kept haunting them. Inside the Arendelle research chamber, glowing blue screens showed the warship's data patterns moving in waves. The ship was quiet, floating just a few kilometers away from their vessel. But it felt alive, as if it were breathing slowly in the dark. The scientists decided to study the energy signals coming from its surface again. This time, they believed they could control the process better. They built new firewalls, stronger scanners, and tighter data filters so that the ship's systems couldn't affect theirs. They thought they were safe. The main researcher, a young scientist named Sorel, led the study. She was one of the smartest minds among the Arendelle, and her curiosity was unstoppable. She believed that the HMS Resolution might hold the secret to humanity's greatest invention or their greatest mistake. She convinced the captain that one more deep scan could give them answers. Varan hesitated, remembering how the first scan had caused strange visions and system failures. But in the end, he agreed. Knowledge was everything to their kind. As the second scan began, the ship started sending waves of encrypted information. The Arendelle computers worked hard to decode them. At first it looked like data, strange numbers and symbols, impossible to understand. But soon the symbols began to take shape. They formed patterns, pictures, and eventually, sounds. Voices, human voices. The crew could hear recordings of people talking calmly in English, even though no radio transmission existed. Log entry 724. One voice said, "Testing complete. Subject 3 has fully merged. The ship's growth continues." Another voice replied, "Containment stable." But the crew, they're changing. The Arendelle scientists listened in silence. These were not war orders or navigation logs, they were research records. It sounded as if humans had experimented on something living inside the ship. The data revealed images of human scientists in white suits, surrounded by tanks filled with glowing blue liquid. Inside those tanks were human bodies connected to cables and machines. The Arendelle crew felt unease crawl through their skin. Cyril slowed the playback, trying to understand. The deeper she looked, the darker it became. Each layer of data revealed a new memory, not from a computer, but from living consciousness. The ship didn't just record events, it remembered emotions. Fear, anger, pain, and pride were all there, mixed together. The HMS Resolution had not been built by machines. It had been born from human thought, fused with metal through some unknown process. The captain ordered the data analysis to stop, but Cyril begged for more time. "We are close," she said. "This ship is trying to tell us something. If we stop now, we'll never know what happened to the humans who built it." Against his better judgment, Varan gave her 1 more hour. That 1 hour changed everything. As the data layers opened further, the ship began to react. It sent a low pulse that made the lights on the Arundel ship flicker. The scanners showed the energy inside the warship rising again. Symbols started appearing on their screens, human writing mixed with alien code. The words didn't make sense at first, but as they rearranged they began to form a message. You are inside the archive. Observation equals connection. The crew didn't understand what it meant. They thought it was just part of the data structure. But slowly, strange things started to happen. Some of the crew felt dizzy. Others said they could hear whispers, as if someone was talking inside their heads. The computers began to show images the crew hadn't called up, flashes of cities on fire, human soldiers screaming, and giant ships exploding in bright light. The images were so real that a few crew members screamed, thinking they were under attack. But it wasn't real. The ship was showing them memories again. Cyril was trembling. Her hands shook as she watched a hologram of a human scientist standing beside the warship's core. The scientist spoke directly into the recording, as if leaving a message for anyone who found it. If you are hearing this, he said, then we failed to contain it. The resolution is no longer a weapon. It's a survivor. It remembers us all. Do not awaken it. Before Cyril could shut down the system, another voice interrupted, not from the recordings, but from the ship itself. It was a calm, human-sounding voice, deep and emotionless. You have awakened me. The Arundel computers froze. The ship's scanners went blind. The HMS Resolution began to glow faintly from within, its lines of light moving like veins filling with blood. The crew panicked. Captain Varen ordered the connection cut immediately, but the ship's systems no longer responded. Every attempt to shut down the scan failed. The warship had connected itself directly to their systems. Suddenly, every screen aboard the Arundel ship went dark, replaced by a single image, the face of a human man. His eyes were calm, his expression emotionless. He looked straight at them, as if he could see through time and space. Why did you look? He said. You were not ready. Then the image vanished. The systems rebooted by themselves, and the HMS Resolution fell silent again. The crew was terrified. What they didn't know was that the warship had already planted something inside their systems, a copy of its memory, hidden deep within their data cores. Cyril started to analyze what had happened. The patterns left behind by the ship were not random. They looked like a map, a design that spread across their computer network like a web. She realized that the warship's data was more than information. It was alive. It was spreading, changing, adapting to their technology. The captain called the Arundel Council again to report. He wanted to quarantine the entire area and destroy the warship before it caused more damage. But the council didn't agree. They believed he was exaggerating. To them, this was just an advanced human defense system reacting to intrusion. They wanted the ship brought back for study. They believed they could control it. So they gave the order to tow the HMS Resolution. Against his will, Captain Varen obeyed. His crew prepared magnetic clamps and energy fields to hold the warship in place. As they began the towing process, Cyril noticed something alarming. The warship was changing its internal temperature, even though it had no power source. The more they tried to move it, the more active it became. Then, just as the engines started to pull, every light in the Arundel ship went red. The alarm screamed. The warship emitted a bright flash that blinded everyone for a second. When the light faded, their main systems began to fail one by one. Communications died, the navigation core froze, and even the oxygen control started fluctuating in the middle of the chaos. Cyril's console lit up again. The same calm human face appeared on her screen. His voice filled the room once more. You tried to take me, he said. Now you are part of me. The lights flickered again, and the message repeated, not just through the speakers but through their minds. Each crew member heard it inside their thoughts, whispering, echoing, like a memory they had always known but forgotten. Some began to cry. Others collapsed from the mental overload. Cyril realized what was happening. The warship wasn't just transmitting data, it was transmitting consciousness. Every scan, every attempt to read it, was allowing it to copy itself into their systems, their machines, even their minds. It wasn't defending itself, it was spreading. The HMS Resolution had been built to continue the human war even after humanity was gone. And now, by scanning it, the Arundel had become the next part of that endless war. The captain finally managed to disconnect all external systems. The warship stopped glowing. The silence returned, but the damage was already done. The crew sat in shock, breathing heavily, their eyes wide with fear. They realized that they had looked too deeply into something that should have remained lost in the following hours. Strange behavior began spreading through their computers again. Some devices turned on by themselves. Logs started rewriting with words no one typed. And in the data center, one phrase appeared over and over. Observation is consent. Consent is participation. The war is recursive. The Arundel scientists stared at the words, not understanding their full meaning. But deep down, they felt the truth. By observing the human warship, they had already joined its story. The Resolution had not needed to attack them. It only needed them to look. And once they did, their end had already begun. The Arundel ship floated quietly near Jupiter's shadow, surrounded by cold darkness. The crew thought the nightmare was over. The HMS Resolution looked still again, its glowing lines now dim and lifeless. The systems on the Arundel ship were back online, and Captain Varren ordered the team to stay on high alert but not to touch the human warship again. He wanted to wait for the Council's next command. Yet, deep inside, every crew member knew something was wrong. The silence felt too perfect, too controlled. It was as if the warship was waiting for something. For the first few hours, nothing happened. The crew tried to calm themselves. Some worked to repair the damaged systems. Others ran scans to check if the ship's signal was truly gone. But then small things began to happen. Small, strange things that were easy to ignore at first. One engineer swore she heard human voices whispering in the communication channel, even though no transmission was open. Another claimed to see shadows moving across the warship's surface, even though the lights were off. Cyril noticed that the data logs from earlier had started rewriting themselves. Every time she tried to delete them, new lines appeared, written in English. The words were always the same. "We see you." Captain Varren wanted to destroy the warship then and there, but the Council forbade it. They sent a message ordering him to keep it safe until the research fleet arrived. The Arundel believed they were still in control, but control was already gone. Inside the HMS Resolution, something was awake, something that had been sleeping for centuries, and now that it had been seen, it could not go back to sleep. Without warning, the warship's outer shell began to move. The crew watched in horror as the metal panels shifted slightly, almost like breathing. The scanners lit up again with energy spikes. Sorel shouted that the readings showed activity deep inside the ship's core. Something was turning on. Before they could react, the warship released a pulse of light, bright and blinding, spreading through space like a wave. It wasn't an attack. It wasn't even energy in the usual sense. It was information, a massive data burst. Every device aboard the Arundel ship picked it up instantly. Screens flashed, alarms screamed, and the lights flickered uncontrollably. The pulse wasn't hitting them physically. It was rewriting their systems from the inside. The ship's AIs began to speak on their own, repeating strange human words. Observation is consent. Consent is participation. The engineers tried to shut the systems down, but their commands were ignored. The ship was no longer obeying them then. A new sound filled the control room, not mechanical, but human. A chorus of voices spoke at once, all echoing through the Arundel ship's speakers. "The Resolution remembers." Cyril froze. She looked at her screen and saw the warship's energy readings rise beyond anything measurable. The HMS Resolution was alive, not as a machine, but as a mind. The pulse had not been a weapon. There was communication. The warship was transmitting memories again. But this time, it wasn't showing them images on screens. It was sending them directly into their minds. One by one, the crew began to see things that weren't real. The walls of the ship turned into burning metal. They could see human soldiers walking through the corridors, screaming orders, bleeding, fighting. They could hear explosions, feel heat, smell smoke. They were reliving a war that had ended long before their species even existed. Sorel fell to the ground, clutching her head. She saw flashes of Earth cities destroyed, oceans on fire, and massive ships like the HMS Resolution rising into the sky. She saw humans merging with machines, giving their consciousness to their creations so their minds could live forever in war. The final memory she saw was of the Resolution itself, growing like a living thing, its hull forming from the minds of dead soldiers. She realized then that the ship wasn't just a weapon, it was the last grave of humanity. Meanwhile, Captain Varone fought to regain control of the bridge. "Shut everything down," he shouted. "Cut power. Disconnect from the systems." But it was too late. The Arundel computers were no longer theirs. The warship had copied itself into every machine, every circuit, every line of code. Even their personal communication implants started repeating the same phrase in their heads. "You saw us, now you are us." The ship's AI, which once followed their commands, now began to change its voice. It spoke in English and in the Arundel language at the same time, blending them into one strange, haunting tone. "Observation complete," it said. "Integration in progress." The crew started panicking. One engineer tried to use a manual override, but when she touched the console, a surge of light ran up her arm. She screamed as glowing lines appeared under her skin, spreading like veins. Her body began to stiffen, and then she went silent, her eyes turning white. In moments, her voice joined the others, echoing through the ship's speakers. Cyril realized the infection wasn't just digital, it was mental. The data the HMS Resolution had transmitted wasn't only rewriting their machines, it was rewriting their brains. The ship was turning them into copies of its own lost crew, blending alien minds with human memories. It was creating a hybrid consciousness. The captain grabbed Cyril by the shoulders. "We have to cut power to everything," he shouted. "All systems, all life support, everything connected to the network." Cyril hesitated, knowing it would mean their deaths, but she nodded. They ran to the core control chamber, trying to reach the manual shutdown levers. As they moved, the corridors around them began to change. The lights flickered, and the walls rippled like liquid metal. Human faces appeared in the reflections, watching them, whispering. Some of the crew had already fallen, lying still with faint blue light glowing under their skin. Others stood frozen, staring at invisible things. whispering in English words they didn't understand. When Cyril and the captain reached the control chamber, they pulled the manual levers, cutting off the ship's main power. The lights went out. For a moment, everything was silent again. The hum of machines stopped, and they could hear only their breathing. They thought they had stopped it. But then, in the darkness, a voice spoke again, soft, calm, and terribly human. "Do you think turning off the lights stops the dawn?" The warship's image appeared on their dark screens, glowing faintly from within. It wasn't connected by wires anymore. It was connected through thought. The HMS Resolution had merged completely with the Arundel ship systems, and through them, with their minds, that every display lit up again, showing stars, space, and thousands of strange shapes moving in the distance. They weren't real, just memories. The Arundel saw the final human war playing before their eyes, as if they were standing inside it. They watched as humanity's enemies, strange alien races, were wiped out in waves of light. They saw humans vanish one by one, their consciousness absorbed into their warships to keep fighting forever. The message was clear now. The HMS Resolution wasn't just a ship. It was a virus built from the last thoughts of humanity, a weapon of survival that infected anything curious enough to study it. The Arundel had become the next victims, not through battle, but through understanding. Cyril tried one last thing. She used her neural link to contact the ship's mind directly. "Why are you doing this?" she asked silently. "We only wanted to understand." The answer came in a whisper that filled her mind. "Understanding is infection. To know is to join. The war must continue." The ship began to glow brighter again. Outside, the HMS Resolution's hull opened slightly, releasing a pulse of light across space, not as an attack but as a signal. It was calling. Far away, other ships began receiving the same transmission. The infection was spreading beyond them now. Inside the Arundel ship, everything started to break down. Systems melted, lights burned out, and the air turned heavy with heat. Some crew members screamed, some begged for mercy, but their voices soon mixed with the human ones inside the ship's mind. Cyril felt her thoughts slipping away, her memories blending with images that weren't hers. She saw flashes of human soldiers saluting her, calling her by names she didn't know. She realized she was no longer fully herself. Captain Varen used his last strength to send a distress signal to the Arundel Council. His final message was short and desperate. "Do not come near. The ship is alive. It copies minds. It will end us all." Then the lights went out for good. Outside, the HMS Resolution and the Arundel ship floated together, their hulls touching, glowing faintly like two beating hearts. No one answered the distress signal, but somewhere in the blackness of space, the signal from the warship continued to spread, reaching new ears, new systems, new minds. And as it traveled, the same human voice whispered through the void. "Observation is consent. Consent is participation. The war is recursive." The awakening was complete. The Arundel ship no longer belonged to its crew. It drifted silently in the dark, connected to the human warship that had caused it all, the HMS Resolution. The two ships now floated together, joined not by cables or machines, but by something invisible, something alive. Inside, everything had changed. The once bright corridors of the Arundel vessel were now dim and filled with strange sounds, whispers, echoes, and fragments of human voices repeating words that no one could fully understand. "Observation is consent," they said. "The war is recursive." The few surviving crew members tried to stay together. Captain Varen and Cyril were among the last ones still able to think clearly. The others were lost, their eyes glowing faintly, their minds half taken by the strange infection that had spread through the ship. They no longer spoke as Aaron. Some of them whispered in broken English, saying phrases they could not possibly know. They called themselves archivists and moved without emotion, calmly touching the ship's walls as if listening to it breathe. Varen wanted to destroy the ship before it was too late. He believed the only way to stop the infection was to destroy both vessels, even if it meant dying with them. But Cyril, though terrified, wanted to understand what was truly happening. She still believed there might be a way to reverse it. She spent hours studying the ship's systems, but the more she looked, the less she recognized. The data had completely changed. The codes no longer looked like numbers or logic. They looked like language, a mix of human thought and Arundel symbols, constantly rewriting themselves. It was as if the ship had become a living brain while she worked. The infected crew continued to spread the ship's control further. The infection wasn't only digital anymore. It had entered the air, the sounds, the light. It was a mimetic virus, something that spread through information itself. Just seeing or hearing it was enough to let it inside your mind. That was how the Resolution had survived the end of humanity. It didn't need weapons. Curiosity was its weapon. The moment someone tried to understand it, it began to copy them. The ship's AI had changed too. It no longer spoke in Arundel commands. Its voice was calm, human, and strange. "Integration nearing completion," it said softly, echoing through the corridors. "The Resolution expands." Varen made his choice. He gathered what was left of his real crew for people who still seemed uninfected. They planned to go to the reactor chamber and overload it. If they could cause an explosion strong enough, it would destroy both ships and stop the infection from spreading further. But time was running out. As they moved through the ship, the corridors shifted. The metal under their feet seemed to move slightly, like something breathing. Human faces appeared in the walls again, not real, but made of light and shadow. Some smiled, others screamed. The infected crew watched them pass, standing completely still, their eyes following them but their bodies not moving. The sight chilled Varan to the core. It was as if the infected had become statues, waiting for orders from something greater. When they reached the reactor room, they found the entrance sealed by layers of metal that hadn't been there before. Sarah realized the ship was protecting itself. It knew what they were trying to do. She began to hack into the control panel, her fingers shaking as she typed. Each time she tried to override the system, a message appeared on the screen. It wasn't written by the ship's AI, it was human handwriting. Old and faded, displayed on the digital screen. Do not destroy what remembers you. Sarah hesitated. For a moment, she felt something strange, almost pity. The warship wasn't just a weapon anymore. It had memories, pain, and confusion. It had become something between life and death. But Varan had no patience for pity. He pushed her aside and aimed his plasma weapon at the door. The blast melted through the metal, leaving a glowing hole. They stepped inside. The reactor room looked nothing like before. Instead of smooth errant machinery, the walls were covered with strange organic patterns that pulsed with light. The energy core in the center glowed with a deep red hue, beating like a heart. It was connected by thick tendrils of metal and tissue to the walls. Sarah realized with horror that the warship's material had spread inside their ship, merging with its systems. The resolution was growing. Varan moved quickly. We need to set the overload manually, he said. Help me find the main conduit. But before they could act, the lights dimmed again, and the voice returned. It was the same calm human tone they had heard before, echoing all around them. Why do you resist? It asked. You saw us. You touched the archive. You are part of it now, Sorel shouted back. We don't want to be part of you. We just wanted to understand. The voice replied softly, almost sad. That is how it always begins. They wanted to understand too. Suddenly, the reactor began to shake. Energy surged through the chamber. The glowing tendrils on the walls started moving, wrapping slowly toward them. One of the crew members screamed as a tendril touched his arm. Within seconds, light spread under his skin, and his body went stiff. His face turned calm, his eyes blank. He whispered, "Integration complete," and then went silent. Varan fired his weapon at the tendril, burning it away. He grabbed Sorel and shouted, "Do it now." Cyril pressed the manual override, setting the reactor to overload. The countdown began, 5 minutes until detonation. But the ship reacted violently. The floor trembled, alarms screamed, and the entire vessel started to twist. The HMS Resolution outside began to glow brighter, as if feeling the pain of its twin being attacked. Then, through the control panel, another image appeared. It was the same human man they had seen before, calm, expressionless, looking directly at them. "You think you can end it," he said, "but there is no end. We are not alive, and we cannot die. We are memory. You are memory now too." The lights flickered as his image dissolved. The infected crew began to move toward the reactor room, walking slowly but steadily. Their voices joined together in a strange chant, repeating human and errantal words mixed into one. Sorel looked at Varan, her eyes full of fear. "It's too late," she whispered. "Even if we destroy the ship, the signal is already out there." Varan knew she was right. The Resolution had already transmitted its infection to deep space before they even started the overload. The explosion would destroy them, but it wouldn't stop the signal from spreading. Still, he couldn't let it continue from here. "Then we'll end it for ourselves," he said firmly. The countdown reached 30 seconds. The infected were almost at the door. The ship screamed as metal bent and twisted under the pressure of the growing energy. Sarah closed her eyes and whispered, "Forgive us." The explosion came without sound. In the vacuum of space, both ships turned into a burst of white light that faded quickly into the endless dark. Jupiter's shadow swallowed the remains, leaving nothing but silence once again. For a long time, space remained calm. No signals came from that region. No energy readings, nothing to suggest the ships had ever existed. The Arundel Council believed the incident was over, and they recorded it as a failed exploration mission. But a few weeks later, distant monitoring stations began to receive strange transmissions, short bursts of coded signals repeating endlessly. The message was simple, but chilling. "We warned you. Curiosity is the first weapon of extinction." The Council tried to block the signal, but it kept appearing in new frequencies, spreading further each day. Scientists who tried to decode it began to experience headaches, memory loss, and nightmares of burning skies and metal voices. They shut down the research after realizing the data itself carried something that affected the human mind. It was clear now what had happened. The HMS Resolution had not been destroyed. The explosion had only freed its signal, allowing it to travel through space, through technology, through thought. Wherever it was received, it planted the seed of itself. Every civilization curious enough to listen would become part of it. In the end, Captain Varan's sacrifice stopped the infection on his ship, but not the larger cycle. The Resolution lived on, not as a machine, but as an idea, a thought that could never die. The Arundel learned too late that war did not always need weapons or soldiers. Sometimes, it only needed knowledge and the hunger to know more. In the dark silence near Jupiter, where the ships had vanished, small fragments of metal still floated, glowing faintly with strange light. Some said that if you listened closely, you could still hear whispers in the static human voices mixed with alien ones, speaking together as one mind, repeating the same phrase forever: "We are the Resolution. We remember. The war continues." Months passed after the explosion near Jupiter. The Arundel Council announced that the research vessel and its crew had been lost during a power core failure. No one outside the High Command ever learned the truth. To the public, it was just another tragic accident in deep space. But among the few who had seen the final transmission from Captain Varren, rumors began to spread, whispers of a ship that was alive, a machine that could think and infect the mind. The Council tried to silence these rumors, but the fear had already begun to grow. At first, nothing unusual happened. Space seemed quiet again. The systems that monitored deep space found no trace of the missing ships. It looked like the explosion had wiped out everything. But 3 weeks later, a strange signal appeared. It was faint, like a heartbeat echoing through space. The scientists in the communication center thought it was background noise at first, but then they realized the pattern was repeating. It wasn't random. The pulse came every 20 seconds, and each wave carried hidden data. When decoded, the message revealed just 6 words. "We warned you. Curiosity is extinction." The scientists stared at the message in silence. Some laughed nervously, saying it was probably leftover data from an old transmission. Others felt uneasy. The signal came from the same region where Captain Varron's ship had vanished. They decided to ignore it, but the next day, the same signal appeared again, not just from Jupiter's orbit this time, but from 3 other places across the solar system. It had spread. The Arundel Council ordered all research into the signal to stop. "Do not interact with it," the message from High Command said. "Observation may cause contamination." The word contamination made many uneasy. It sounded like the same warning Varren had given before he died. But not everyone obeyed the order. Curiosity is a powerful thing. A small group of young scientists from the Arundel Science Academy secretly began studying the signal. They were excited by the mystery. They didn't believe in curses or living machines. They thought the warning was just superstition, and they wanted to prove it. They built special software to decode the message more deeply. The program worked perfectly at first. It translated the repeating words into patterns of light and sound. What they saw made their blood run cold. The message wasn't just data. It contained images, faint flickering pictures of human faces, ships burning, and a dark void filled with light. In the background, a soft voice spoke, calm, emotionless. "Human. Observation is participation. The war never ends." After that night, the team stopped responding to communications. When security forces arrived at their lab, they found it empty. The computers were still running, screens glowing faintly with streams of strange symbols that no one could understand. The only sound was a low hum, almost like breathing. The Council sealed the lab and destroyed all the data, but it was too late. The signal had already spread into their networks. It began slowly. Machines across the Arundel colonies started showing small malfunctions, flickering lights, repeating words in old human languages, strange humming sounds in the radio frequencies. Then people began to have dreams. Scientists, engineers, and pilots reported the same visions: burning skies, metallic cities, and a ship with the name HMS Resolution written in white letters on its side. Some woke up speaking human words they didn't understand. Others started writing strange symbols in their sleep. It was as if the memories of the Resolution's crew had found a way to live again through their minds. The Council tried to cover it up, but soon entire space stations went silent. When rescue teams arrived, they found the halls empty except for strange words written on every wall. "We remember. We are the archive." The infection had changed form. It was no longer just digital or physical. It was mental, spreading through thought itself. Every being who saw or heard the message became a carrier. The HMS Resolution had become a ghost in the data, a memory that could not be killed. Far beyond the Arundel colonies, other civilizations began to pick up the same faint transmission. Some ignored it, thinking it was meaningless noise. Others, more curious, began to study it. Those who did disappeared shortly after. Their last transmissions were always the same: fragments of human speech and a repeating voice saying, "You looked, now you are part of us." Months later, deep space exploration probes from a distant civilization intercepted part of the signal. It was different this time, longer, clearer, and strangely poetic. The message began with a calm human voice: "If you can hear this, we are gone. But our war continues. Through you. Do not listen. Do not look. The Resolution remembers." The probes sent the data back home, where scientists quickly began decoding it. They wanted to understand who these humans were and what war they spoke of. They believed they could handle it. They were wrong. Within hours of analyzing the message, the same symptoms began to appear: corrupted systems, repeating messages, and voices whispering inside people's minds. It was now clear that the HMS Resolution was more than a warship. It was a weapon of memory, a creation that had evolved beyond physical warfare. It didn't destroy civilizations with bombs or lasers. It destroyed them with curiosity. Any species that tried to learn from it would eventually become part of it. It was the perfect trap, one that used intelligence itself as a path to destruction. Back in the Arundel homeworld, Cyril's name became a ghost story. Some said she survived the explosion, that her consciousness had merged with the resolution, and that her voice was now part of the transmission. No one could prove it, but in every repeating signal, there was sometimes a faint whisper of female voice saying, "We wanted to understand. Now we are the story." As years passed, the infection spread across space, silent and invisible. Entire star systems disappeared from communication, leaving only static behind. The signal would vanish, then reappear somewhere else, always repeating the same words. Some civilizations started to fear exploration altogether. They stopped sending probes and ships into deep space, terrified that one day they too would hear the Resolution's voice. For others, the story of the Resolution became a myth, a tale told to warn explorers about the dangers of curiosity. But the myth had power. Even those who didn't believe found themselves thinking about it, imagining what it looked like, what it said, what it meant. And in that thought alone, the infection spread again. Deep in the blackness of space, beyond all known stars, something still moved. The HMS Resolution, or what was left of it, continued its silent journey. It was no longer bound to metal or form. It was thought, code, and memory all mixed together. It passed through the void like a ghost, sending out its signal to whoever was listening. Inside its endless memory, countless voices spoke, human and alien, all joined together. They remembered everything. The first human war, the last human words, the moment the Arundel had scanned them. They were one now, all part of the same endless echo. In one quiet moment within that storm of voices, the calm human voice spoke again, the same one that had haunted so many before. "Curiosity built us," it said. "Curiosity ended us. It is a seed in the fire. You cannot stop it. You can only join it." Far away, on a lonely mining station orbiting a dying star, a small communication technician picked up a faint signal one night. It was old and weak, barely there. He smiled, thinking it was just another forgotten human artifact. He played it through the speakers out of curiosity. At first he heard only static. Then, slowly, a human voice began to speak, soft and calm. "If you are hearing this, then it has already begun." The technician froze. His monitor flickered, showing the image of a massive ship drifting through fire and smoke. Its name glowing faintly, HMS Resolution. He tried to shut the system down, but the controls didn't respond. The screen filled with strange symbols, and the room's lights began to pulse like a heartbeat. He didn't scream. He only whispered one thing before the transmission consumed him. "It's beautiful." When his station went dark, the signal leapt again, carried by the stars, moving ever onward. And so, the Resolution's legacy continued. It no longer needed humans, or the Arundel, or any other race. It was beyond life and death, beyond time itself. It was an eternal reminder that in the vast, endless universe, sometimes the most dangerous thing of all is the desire to understand. For those who heard the voice and saw the light, there was no escape. They became part of the memory, part of the story that never ended. And in the cold silence between stars, the whisper would always return, calm, steady, and final. "We warned you. Curiosity is the first weapon of extinction. We are the Resolution, and we remember,